Hiya! So I'm going to take you through my wrap up for February. So I read 13 books in February, which is a pretty big number for me. So I have been kind of expecting to read maybe 10 a month this year, but it's not turning out that way so far. But I read 12 in January, which I would say for like last year was fairly standard. And yeah, somehow got to 13 in the shortest month of the year. And it was a pretty big variety for me of books as well. So yeah, let's get started. So the first book that I finished was by Julia Shaw. And this is actually a non-fiction. So I had a fiction balloon on my Storygraph stats for over 2 years before I picked this one up. So definitely unusual. And I actually listened to this through audio and I got the audio from my library, so that was nice. So this one is about kind of like the science, culture and history of bisexuality and was so super interesting. Kind of there was a lot about how bisexuality has been defined or not defined through the ages, about some of the more controversial tests for it and the stigmas that have come with that, through to things like bisexual animals and like the benefits and drawbacks of being bisexual in today's society. I would really recommend it. It was such an interesting read, and the audio was really good as well. It is narrated by the author, so that's always quite good. So then back to more normal territory for me, and the next book I finished was Silence Fallen by Patricia Briggs. So this for me was the next book in the Mercy Thompson series, which I have been working my way through. This one was a bit different to some of the other books, as it is actually, for the majority of it, based in Europe. So it's in Milan, I believe, somewhere in Italy, and then in Prague. And Mercy is separate from like the pack and all her like home friends for most of it, so it's a very different vibe. And I think it's definitely one that you'll either be into or you won't. When I said on Instagram that I was reading this, I had one person message me going, "Oh, that's my favourite book in the series." And then I had someone else messaging me going, "Yeah, that's my least favourite book in the series." So definitely divisive. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. The different setting I thought was great, and Mercy having the chance to shine kind of by herself rather than necessarily just as part of the pack, and like the consequences for some of the stuff that had happened in like the book before and things like that was really good. So yeah, obviously with this series, it's an urban fantasy series that you do have to read in order. So the first book in the series is Moon Called, if you'd like to check it out. And then the next book that I read was a highly anticipated read for me, and that was Happily Ever Witch by Cassandra Gannon. So this is book 6 in the kind of fairy tale series, and it did release at the start of February. This series is all kind of fairy tale retellings, I guess, but not as you'd expect them to be. So it's definitely a play on the characters, on the concepts of good and bad as characters. You can technically read them by themselves, but I would recommend reading them in order just to get the full appreciation. Wicked Ugly Bad is the first one. But this one, Happily Ever Witch, is finally Ez's book. So Esmeralda's book has been teased since like the end of book 2, but changed quite a few times. So she's the Wicked Witch, and it's based in Wonderland. So we have got a lot of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass references in there. This series is like my absolute comfort series. Anything Cassandra Gannon just makes me so happy. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It absolutely didn't disappoint, and Ez is absolutely up there on my top book girlfriends list, which is just amazing. And then because I was away for the weekend when I finished that, the next book that I picked up was a random pick from my Kindle, and I read Wicked Rejection by Scarlett. So this is a fantasy romance. I think it's fantasy romance. It's like on the border between paranormal and fantasy, based around a wolf pack. And we have got someone who has to run away from her pack because of the situation that she is put into, and ends up going to a rival who is responsible for the death of her parents. And then her rival, the alpha from this other pack, sort of makes some claims to her when she's there. It was fine. I would say it's one of those series where the 3 books in the series is basically one story. So there is a cliffhanger ending. It's not written to like wrap up that story and then have an ongoing thread. It is very much a cliffhanger ending. I did start reading book 2 just because I fancied carrying on, but it wasn't holding my attention. So as soon as it got to the next day, I just stopped. So it was fine. It filled the time in, but I have no plans to continue the series, and it's not one that I'd put on like my recommend list. So then the next book I read was another one from my Kindle, and this one was The Queen's Beta by Drea. And this one is the second book in the Truly Fated series. So this is a fantasy romance series. The first one, The Duchess's Bodyguard, I read fairly recently as well. So this definitely follows on from that. So both of the main characters in this book do play a part in the first book. We have got the Fairy Queen, and then we've got a werewolf from the pack that features heavily in the first book as well. There's a lot of intrigue, and it's very forbidden, the fact that they want to be together. So they are fated mates, the two of them, but because of his position in his society and the fact that he is keeping a secret from her, they can't be together. They can't be seen to be together because she is like the fairy queen. But so they were together, and then they kind of, things didn't work out for those reasons, and he kind of wants a second chance, and she doesn't know if she can ever trust him. So there's a lot of political fallout from stuff that happens in the first book. There's a lot of intrigue just from like being part of court life, and yeah, it was really good. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to when another book gets released in this series. And then I picked up a book from my shelves that I have been wanting to get to for a while, and I just keep not picking up for some reason. And that was An Island Princess Starts a Scandal by Adriana Herrera. This one is book 2 in the Las Leones series, because it's about a group of friends who do call themselves the Lionesses, which is so fitting for them. And this one is a historical romance. And this one is actually sapphic, which we always love to see. So in this one we have got Manuela from the friendship group that appears in the first one. So her and a bunch of her friends have come over from the Caribbean to Paris for a world exhibition. And in Manuela's case, she is an artist, and she has got some art that is in the exhibition, but she is also using it as like a last chance at freedom. She has been arranged to marry a businessman back home, which her parents need because her parents have got into a lot of debt, so they're essentially selling her into marriage. He gets the family name, her family gets the money that they need. So she has a last 6 weeks of freedom to get out there and be true to herself and who she is. And we have then got Cora, who is a businesswoman who is based in Paris. She is from South America originally, but she has lived most of her life in that area, and she is having to deal with the pressures of being a woman in business, and she desperately needs a portion of land that Manuela has, so the two have to come into contact. And Manuela suggests that maybe Cora can help her with experiencing some parts of life that she won't get once she's been married off. So yeah, I absolutely adored this book. It's so good. The character development for both of them is incredible. And Manuela's friendship group, they are just the best kind of people. I'm just completely in love with them. And yeah, I've loved both of the first two books, so I'm sure I will for the third book as well. And then we had a bit of a tone change. So Serpentine Valentine by Giana Darling had released at the start of the month, and I had just seen so much hype about it everywhere. And what was interesting for me, so this is a sapphic dark academia romance, and the mix of people that were hyping it were both people who normally read sapphic books and people who I pretty much never see reading sapphic books. So yeah, I was intrigued, so I gave it a try. And yeah, I will say it is definitely dark. So this one we have got Lex and Luna. So Lex is at college, which is the college that it's based at, and within the first two chapters she is assaulted. So this is laid out in the content warnings, but be aware going in, if this is something that is triggering for you, stay clear, because the whole of the book is that there is a recurring theme of her dealing with the aftermath and other similar incidents happening throughout the college campus. So absolutely look after yourself and do not go near this book if that is going to be a problem for you. So basically Lex wants to get revenge on the college for everything that happened, because it was a professor that assaulted her and the college covered it up. So Luna is the daughter of the head of the college. I can't remember what the term is for it right now. And Lex basically wants to use her for revenge. So yeah, it goes from there. Like I say, it is definitely dark. But yeah, I was obsessed with it. The only thing that annoyed me that I would want to change with it is there's a lot of Harry Potter references, and guys, we don't need Harry Potter references. That series and that woman just does not need more representation in this day and age. So yeah, I would have been happier had that been, taken out. But otherwise, I really loved it as a book, and I can definitely see why everyone was obsessed. After that, having caught up with a couple of series earlier in the month, I decided to take the opportunity to start a new series, one that has been on my shelves for a while, and that is the Immortal Reign series by Ariel Marie, with the first book being Deadly Kiss. And I think, we'll have a look. So this one's actually a signed copy. I met Ariel Marie at Rare last year in London, and this was one of the books that I got that I hadn't already read of hers, because yeah, I'd already read quite a few. So this one is a vampire series. It's definitely chunkier than a lot of her other books if you have read them before, but this is a paranormal romance and a world where vampires have made themselves known to humans, and basically now completely dominate them. But the vampires do need the humans because they need fated mates, and they're running out of mates amongst vampires. So they have started doing blood tests of a bunch of humans and a bunch of vampires to see if they can find their mates that way. So for the humans, it is a forced thing. So Quinn is forced to go through the blood tests, and then she just has to hope that her name doesn't come up. But it does, and then she finds out that she is going to be mated to Valka, who is one of the princesses, one of the rulers of the realm. And she has her entire life been scared of vampires. So it's not the best start to it. To make matters even better, Valka never wanted to go into the draft either. Her mother actually put both her and her sisters forward. But yeah, I really like this one. The premise of the world is really cool. There is like a certain element of insta-lust in here because of the fated mate side of things, but because of the fact that Quinn is terrified of vampires, like it definitely takes a lot longer to develop into anything else. So it's not like, oh yay, we found each other, we'll be together forever, happy times, which I did like. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the other books in this series as well. I think I've got books 2 and 3 on my shelves, so they will be nice to get to. And then in a definite change for me, I actually read some contemporary romance. I know, who even am I? So I picked up Venice actually by Kelly Reynolds, which is a novella. This wasn't what I was going to read, so I had picked up a different book off my shelves to read and then just thought, actually this was what I really fancied for some reason. So I picked it up. So this is the second book in her Christmas novellas series. So these are based in LA. So we've got Killian, who appears briefly in the first book at the end as Bowie's best friend. And then we have got Leighton, who was in the first book working at the cafe that Bowie was working at. Killian and Leighton have sort of been dancing around each other quite a lot. There's some definite lusting going on from Killian's side, whereas Leighton's just like, yeah, he's really annoying. But circumstances happen that mean she pretty much has to move in with him. He's more than happy for her to appear at his house. But then her sister tells their parents that Killian isn't her roommate, he's her fiance, which of course he leans into even further. We do have some beautiful rap in here. Leighton is pansexual, and that does get talked about a lot, particularly with like her parents' views on that. And she is also plus size, which again is handled beautifully. This is proper spicy, and it absolutely hit the spot of what I needed. And so then after that, in a change of tone, I went back to paranormal romance and read Resonant Surge by Nalini Singh. So this is, I think, book 7 in the Psy Changeling Trinity series. There being 15 books in the Psy Changeling series. And this one is back with the bears. So there's actually kind of 2 stories in one here. There is the definite romance, but there is also a relationship that has been brewing on the side that kind of fully flourishes in this one. This is kind of hard to talk a lot about without a million spoilers for the earlier Side Changeling Trinity books. But we have got Yakov, who is a bear, and then we have got Theo, who is a Psy, and her family have done some quite bad things, and she is trying to make things right. But Yakov, or Yasha as he's more commonly known, has been dreaming of Theo since he was like a teenager, which definitely brings a different dynamic to things. I'm obsessed with this series. I really, really loved this one. It was great being back in this world. You can start this series, I would definitely say, either start at the start of the Psy Changeling series, which is Slave to Sensation, or start at the start of the Psy Changeling Trinity series, which is Silver Silence. You can start at either. Obviously you do get more background and knowledge of the world if you start right at the start, but I understand 22 books is quite a long way to go through. So yeah, Psy Changeling Trinity, the start of that is another place to start. But either way, Nalini Singh is amazing, and I'm always happy when I'm reading one of her books. And then speaking of favourite authors, I finally picked up my first Lexi Blake book of the year, which was Siren Beloved, which is the fourth, I think, yes, book in the Texas Sirens series. So these are small time romances, a little bit of cowboy romance in there, and certainly all the books that I have read so far in this series are thruples with 2 men and 1 woman. So in this one, our heroine is Lexi, who is the daughter of our heroine from the first 2 books. And we've got her boyfriend Lucas and then her ex-fiance Aiden. So Aiden has been out of their life for a little while since he messed up big style and kind of, yeah, everything broke up. But he wants back in, and this time he wants both of them, which is pretty good for them. So there's very much a BDSM theme in this book, as there is with basically all of Lexi's books. There is a slight suspense, like mystery plot running through it in terms of like what has happened to Aiden in that time that he's been passed, what has happened to Lexi that has changed her, although I would argue neither of them are that difficult to work out, but it's just how they're going to come out into the story is the interesting part. I'm really glad I picked this back up because, yeah, I had been putting it off for a while for some reason. And I think the next book for me, because I'm going to read the 2 series intertwined, is in the Bliss series. So, yeah, looking forward to getting started on that. So then the next book that I read was Dark. Definite change of vibe, funnily enough. So it was a Vibe by Liza James, and I picked this one up because I realised that I don't have long left on Kindle Unlimited, and I decided to start working my way through the ones that I have got downloaded from that. And also Liza James is going to Rare later this year, so it seemed a good fit. So this one is a sapphic dark romance with an emphasis on the dark, and do not go into this if you are looking for something that is sane in any way. This book is so messed up. So we start in the prologue with Aura as a teenager, and she is in a cult, and basically as you go through each page it becomes more and more messed up. So we fast forward then to a few years after she has successfully run away from the cult, and she's living her life. You know, she's got a steady boyfriend, she's got a best friend, and they are helping expose her to different things that she wouldn't necessarily have had a chance to do when she was part of this cult. And they take her to a strip club because obviously, why not? And there Aura is instantly intrigued by one of the dancers called Ruby, and Ruby as well kind of feels this connection to Aura, and Ruby herself has got some really messed up stuff that is going on. There are so many triggers for this book, so please check out like the content warnings on either Storygraph or the author's website if you think there is anything that may impact you going into this. Like, just please look after yourself. I did spend pretty much the entire book going, what am I reading? Like, this is so messed up. But then I was also questioning the fact that I was reading it and I was happily reading it, and I think I liked the book. Like, I mean, it's definitely like a romance. It has a happy ever after for the couple. I still think I'm not over it, quite how messed up it was, but I'm definitely glad I read it. And I don't know what that says about me as a person, and I don't know if I want to know what that says about me as a person. But there we are. But then the final book that I read in the month was another Kindle Limited book, and that was Fire in the Moonlight by Drea Andersen. I've definitely wanted to get to this one because it is the third in a 3-book series. They are paranormal romances, and each one follows a different cousin. The heroines are all cousins who in the first book inherit their grandmother's house. So Vanessa, who is the heroine in this book, is a powerful witch with connections to the spirits. So she sees ghosts effectively, and has them for quite some time, but her powers are getting stronger. And then we have got Trey, the hero, is a werewolf. All his family kind of run in this gang sort of thing, but his mum has very definitely kept him separate from that, and has got him, like, he has a job in law enforcement and he's supposed to be on the up and up. And he has had this connection and attraction to Vanessa for a while, and she just sees him as a bit of an annoying pest. So it all kind of goes through from there. We have got some interesting stuff. Vanessa has a very illicit past, which has seen her have a few brushes with law enforcement, and the consequences of some of the things that she has done do come up into this book. So we have like the whole family having to come together to resolve some things. Yeah, I mean, I've loved this series as a whole. I'm really glad that I picked it up, and it was definitely like a great series finale in there. And yeah, these two were absolutely great. I loved both of them. So all in all, it was a fantastic reading month. There was only like one book that I would be happy if I hadn't read. So yeah, and obviously quite a variety. I don't know where my reading is going to go in March, but if I get any reads that are half as good as some of those books that I read, then I will be very happy. Let me know if you have read any of these, or if you had a particular favourite that you read in February, and I will see you soon. Bye!